Hi, my name is Michelle, and I'm the co-founder of Wearables. Maria here is my co-founder, and I wanted to thank you, or we both wanted to thank you for coming on this rainy day, and it's a great turnout actually. I walked in and said I looked like a drowned cat, pardon the pun, and thank you very much for coming. We're actually live streamed tonight, which is it's a great surprise by ThoughtWorks, so you can wave, I think. Yeah?
Okay, I'm ready.
Do the wave. Great, thank you. So we've got a really good jam-packed schedule here for you tonight. We've got Kate from ThoughtWorks talking about the Silent Herdsman and the wearable tech for cows, which is very interesting in itself. So she's going to talk about how she led the product design team to create a neck-mounted cow design for the cows, really. So, yeah, I can't say much about it, just can't tell you all about it. Then we've got Felcana, who's talking about wearable tech for cats and dogs. And I know we've got lots of pet lovers here, and Maria and I are dog lovers, so we're really excited to hear about them.
We don't have any dogs, unfortunately.
Not yet. This is all part of the research. No. We're being quite selfish, actually. And their design is amazing. It's very sleek, very professional, beautiful. So hopefully they can give us more information about that. And then finally, we've got a special guest tonight who confirmed at 12 o'clock last night. Lovely Katie Good. She's our WOW Women in VR, and who has started a project called Tracker VR.
Sort of on those lines. I haven't started yet.
Basically, it's a VR for cats, but it can be for dogs as well, and it keeps your pet. Could be for children. It keeps your pet or moving objects, shall we say, safe and involved in your VR games. So that's very interesting. So yeah, someone here is just going, "What is going on tonight?" Yeah. Katie's actually in London for a conference that she's also up for the Women in VR Awards. Games, sorry, Women in Games Awards. And so hopefully she will win. So she's got our support tonight. And Katie's other games as well, which was nominated for a BAFTA award after 6 weeks of developing. So we've got a fantastic woman here to tell you about her story. So, Kate, we'll start with the Silent Herdsman wearable tech for cows.
I'm gonna check this.
Yeah, is this working?
Oh, it is. Yeah, just pop it on. Could you pop it on your shirt?
I can just talk loudly. And then there's less pressure for my microphone. That always increases that. So thanks for having me here today. I know the topic was pets and wearables, and I'm here to talk to you about cows, which is not your traditional household pet. So back in 2014, we started an engagement with a really awesome startup called Silent Herdsman. Can you hear me at the back? Or yeah, cool. So this started as a university project, and they invented a collar which had a 3D accelerometer on it. So quite similar to what we all have in our phones. So we turn our phones, it's that same accelerometer that knows that we've rotated the phone. So they attached the 3D accelerometer onto this collar. Then they decided to attach it to a cow. Now this was to track the movement of a cow. Now you might ask, why does anyone want to track the movement of a cow? Good question. So I didn't really know this until I got into dairy farming. And it's a bit stupid of me because it's actually common sense. But a cow needs to have given birth to give milk. So quite similar to humans, but something you've probably never thought of. So it's really important for good milk production that you get cows pregnant on a regular cycle. And cows have the same sort of cycle as us females. And so there's only a small window that you can get a cow pregnant. So a cow's cycle is between 18 to 24 days. And then it's only a 24-hour window. In that cycle, you can actually get a cow pregnant. So how you know a cow is what they call it on heat is that it starts increasing in movement. So it gets really excited. So traditionally, farmers have to watch the herds. So they actually spend a lot of time looking at the cows to actually see if any of them have increased movement and that they might be on heat. The farmers also know the animals incredibly well. I was actually surprised when I visited farms that there might be a herd of 200 cows, and they all had names as well. And they could actually identify which cow was which. It was amazing. And so the problem is that cows have stopped showing the same movements. So they still are increasing in movement, but not as much as previously. It's a lot harder for farmers to pick up on these signals. So, Silent Herdsman invented this collar that goes around a cow's neck and alerts the farmer when a cow goes on heat. And then the alerts go to a PC in the milking shed, which is behind like a huge cover, which is like waterproof, poo-proof, everything in the milking shed. And then they asked us to engage, and so what we wanted to do with them was build a new app. So they had the collar working a proof of concept that it was just going to just the PC in the milking shed, and so they wanted to update it, take everything to the cloud and make it scalable and work across multiple devices. So today I'm just going to talk to you more about the UX that went into this and kind of our approach. So, quite often we're thrown into quite a new domain that we don't know about. Now you may have picked up that I'm from New Zealand, and you may link New Zealand with dairy farming, but I personally knew nothing of the topic at all. So quite quickly we had to get our whole team up to speed with the new domain. Now one way is just to Google it. Sit down behind your laptop and just start researching, which is usually what we fall to. However, we wanted to do things a bit differently. We wanted to do a more user-centered approach to it. So instead, we went out and spent all our time on these farms. So we let the users of Silent Herdsman actually teach us. So the key was to spend minimal time in front of our laptops and the most amount of time understanding the context of what we're building and spending it with the farmers. So we started off just interviewing them and talking to lots of farmers. We started seeing what the environment was like on a farm. And you can imagine it's quite unique. There's lots of cows everywhere, there's lots of dogs everywhere, there's mud, and then in the middle of it, there's the system that we're building. And we also watched farmers use the system as well. And so what's really interesting here, so this was the first system that we were replacing, is the farmers loved it. They all of a sudden had a system that told them that when the cow went on heat, and they really couldn't fault it. So they kept saying, like, we love all the features, we love it, please don't change it on us. But it was interesting because when we started watching them use it, it was quite a different story. So actually, you can imagine that a lot of the time farmers have gloves on, they usually have quite big hands anyway in general, and so you can't quite see in this picture, but all the buttons are really small and they're close together. And actually, most farmers couldn't actually touch the touch screen, they had to get a pen to do it, to actually touch the individual buttons. And there's lots of things like that, that we actually saw the frustration of farmers using the system, even though they said they loved it and couldn't quite articulate what was wrong with it. We also we left a GoPro overnight on lots of different farms, and we watched the system over 24 hours being used. Now this was awesome because it gave us really valuable insight of when the farmers are using it. And then you'll be able to see in a moment the cows coming in to be milked in the background. This huge red flashing cow means that the cow's on heat, and farming term these serves to get pregnant. But what's really interesting as well is you can see that this alert is happening, but no one was activating it for a couple of hours there. So we went from thinking it had to be instant and you need instant notification to actually is it on time based, and it's when the farmer needs the information and is ready to do it in their normal day-to-day cycle. So we looked on lots of different farms just to really understand the context of what we're building. And then, oh, want to play it again. We also did a persona exercise with the Silent Herdsman team. Now this was really important because you just think farmers, but actually there's lots of different types of farmers. There's people that own huge dairy farms to quite small farms. There's farms in the middle of nowhere that have low connectivity. What do we do with those farmers? So actually wanted to understand the different use cases behind the different users. And an example is, we have a German farmer here who is a huge dairy farm, full connectivity across the whole farm. I think it was like thousands and thousands of cows. There's Ian, really small farmer, Northern Ireland. Connectivity comes in and out as well. So very different use cases how they want to use the system. And so we're just looking at how we might cater for the different users, and actually if there's priority in there as well. So if there's some users that are more important than others, especially for the introduction of a new system. Someone else we looked at was the support. So actually how is the system going to be rolled out to farms? What do farmers do when there's any support problems? And this was really important to us because obviously farms are very spread out. You can't just send someone to help them with the system all the time. We want to actually be able to help them without being physically there. We also want to come up with some UX principles for the system. So what were some guiding practices that would help us? Some of these are quite obvious and apply to lots of different areas, but some of them were quite specific. So in fact, finger friendly was a key one. So there had to be a lot of space around each of the buttons, so it's easy for them to push it on a screen. We also wanted to simplify the perceived complexity of the system. So actually, it didn't need to look really, really complex to show how smart it was. And so we wanted just to completely simplify it and make it really easy to do the key actions with. So we started off with paper prototyping. Now, doing rough paper prototypes in front of farmers provided kind of a point to have the discussion around it. So this was like basic understanding how the system might work, and lots of it we got wrong. So all of it was like based on interviews. They should be able to put something in front of the user and get feedback, and it being low fidelity also helped. So farmers were happy to completely critique everything, because all they thought is that we'd quickly drawn something up on a piece of paper to show them. So they literally grabbed a pen off us and started drawing the system. And this is farmers that you don't usually think are that tech savvy. They would never think that they're designing a system. We're actually creating it themselves. It was really awesome. And they were literally crossing out features going, no, that's not how it should work. So we got a lot of value for keeping this paper prototype stage. And it just kind of proves how low fidelity really does help. And we're able to get lots and lots of feedback. So lots of good things, lots of bad things, lots of things we had to change. And we keep iterating because it's really fast at this stage. It's just paper prototypes. And we put a lot of wireframes in front of farmers. I think we interviewed 22 farmers at this stage, just getting lots and lots of feedback. And then we took it to interactive prototypes. So it was important to get to that next stage because paper prototypes do run out of how much feedback you can get. And when someone's actually going through a journey and actually able to interact with it, it does give you the next level of feedback. So we did go into interactive prototypes. Still, this was all fake, it wasn't actually real. And then we started building out the real system. So we launched a minimum viable product. This was still, we launched within 2 months of starting, so it was very quick as we're iterating all the time. And so what's interesting is we launched it with 1/3 of the original functionality of the product. Now, we gave it to some farmers and we asked what's missing. And they couldn't find a single feature that was missing, which just shows how much other noise there was before and they weren't actually using it. So this is what the old system looked like. And then the new system is quite similar because we didn't want to take away from how the farmers previously used it and cause such a change in behaviour. So the new system looks like that. So you still have the cows on this side. We played with a lot of concepts moving just the cows on this side because when someone's using the screen, most people are right-handed. So they'll be interacting with it with their right hand. And so we thought it would be easier to have most of these actions on the right-hand side. However, it was a really bad hypothesis because they wanted to see what cow was selected and then read the information across. So that was more important. So it was interesting things like that we tested out. So, and so just some key learnings. I recommend stay as low fidelity as long as possible, just to keep testing out ideas. Enter usability sessions with key goals. So each time we're trying to research a key part of the system. And then seek feedback from lots of different users of the system. Don't just keep going back to your target users or your test group. Keep iterating the design. And then also don't just test it with your stakeholders as well, or people in the company. They're not the ones that actually are using it. And to finish, I've just got a quick video as well to cover all the points I probably forgot of the story.
One of the reasons that we were so excited to work with Silent Herdsman was, I think, that taking advantage of the powerful but low power consuming devices that are available now, being able to get large amounts of compute power into a very small package and have a battery life for several years. They're also using it to solve a real world problem in an innovative way. So that was very exciting for us. What we were able to do is say, well, look, we can create a solution in the cloud. We can use some great features bugs, and especially around elasticity, which means we can start small and then scale things up as we need to. And we'll also build a mobile web app that will connect to these servers in the cloud and make that data available.
ThoughtWorks proposal focused on both providing a technological solution, but also providing business analysis and interactions with customers, and going out and doing the research to work out what our customers wanted, what was wanted.
So I've been out user testing at a farm. We started off through paper prototypes for farmers. They were just getting their initial feedback. And it was iterated on that during this process. And if it's an interactive prototype, we're going to able to touch it. And now today, we can actually use the testing with the final application. And the end, we want to make that as easy as possible for them to be able to serve cows, and we want to know what features we can build to make farmers right easier.
So we're comfortable that by building this out in the cloud in a way we can scale up, we can cope with very large amounts of data without having to go and rebuild them. I think the other area that's really interesting is going to other regions, geographies. And again, because we're using Amazon and because we've automated everything, we take the scripts that we've run here to European Amazon instances, go and run that in the US, and basically recreate the entire environment in the US or Far East, very, very quickly. So those are, I think, two key areas where we can do that.
Oh, thank you. Are there any questions or?
Yeah. I thought this was fascinating. I like agricultural and farming time. So I'm really wondering, what is next then? I mean, do you want to release sheep? What is next for this? It's fantastic. Awesome.
Okay, so we have started with the next round of funding. With that, they actually extended the collar functionality to actually help determine when the cow was sick as well. So it's an early sign. So they actually picked up when the cow stopped moving as well, so it's the opposite. And then they had awesome success with that because they're able to actually get a vet in to help the cow before it got really serious. And then Silent Herdsman then actually got sold to a bigger milking company.
So you're not working for them anymore?
No, so
Okay.
so we it was about 3 years ago now.
So a lot of the farmers said they had reporting activity. So why did you go with cloud solution when that obviously is connectivity? Why not standalone app which they would be able to use on anywhere on their farm without any internet connection?
Yeah, so it was a web app that we ended up building in the end, so they could use it on their mobile phone, any device. That was a real challenge though, was the non-connectivity
Yeah, it's
farm.
like in Cornwall, but it's just like
No.
you're not even on not even GPS or anything else.
So because this was a startup, they actually, using the persona exercise, they decided to focus on the farms that had connectivity, and then partnered with one of the big firms that helped provide it, and actually worked with to get more farms online. So that was sort of the approach they went for.
So it's like an assumption that they will eventually get online.
And then there was also, they only needed the milking sheds to be online because they could store data on the collar. So when the cows came back in to get milked, they could just transmit it.
Yeah, it's like I guess ultimately, like it used to be an independent system, and then like making it in the cloud actually would put another requirement on which a lot of farmers, I know in my local area at least, would have a problem with. So like, why not just allow both and have like an actual standalone app where if you happen to have internet connectivity, stuff, otherwise. Like it's just like basically be at your house and then move out to your farm.
These are all things we considered. I think because it was a startup, they're just looking at how do they get the maximum value at the start, and going after connected users was the easier route to market. And then I'm not too sure if they went back and actually did something for the
Yeah, because like, I guess also Amazon servers are really quite expensive. Like to actually have something always on isn't necessarily that's your cheapest solution for them either. So I'm just wondering, it's like, is it as part of the marketing saying in the cloud, you know, it makes it easy for marketing, Or is it more just because then they can get all the data themselves? Like, actually, because I'm guessing that's what they're doing. The reason why they want online is so they can actually take the data and movement from all the cows that it's attached to and use it for their means of their own end.
Yes, that's what they use the data for. And it was also, at the time, Amazon was the cheapest provider. I'm on the UX side, so I wish there was someone technical to answer more of the architecture questions. All of this is discussed in detail, I think. And it also was a big play to move internationally as well. To some of the other countries which had more connectivity.
So what about an issue though? Because I mean, especially your large scale farmers, they're going to be connected, and they have to do all, I think, do everything online now. So see your small scale farmers.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing. It's like seeing almost like conflict of the initial briefs of like the sort of farmers that will go down, and then actually what the end result is actually they need to be connected.
Yeah.
Is the answer.
Yeah.
Which is like, but that's not necessarily how some organic farmers actually work.
Your larger farmers are.
Yeah,
And
and
we're
larger
going to be
farmers.
probably more interested in like something innovative, perhaps. I don't know. I don't know. I'm having an argument. I don't even know.
Like not many cases have the chance. Like,
Yeah.
you can't reach a sideways standards compared to
That's true. That's true. That's true.
I do believe they were going to investigate an offline option. It was just at start, minimum viable product was connectivity.
So within cows, the heat sort of period was detected by the change in the trends, right?
No, it's like the same, it's like a woman's cycle. So,
Yeah, but
it's,
how do you detect?
Oh, sorry.
Day.
it's the cow increases in movement.
Moving exactly, but then to which animals kind of is that technology historical? Is that like unique towards cows? Like, sorry to be the
No, we do.
I don't know.
So apparently there was
Like,
a
could this
thing
color be
recently.
applied to like different animals?
Yeah,
No,
it's
sure.
it's a real women thing. Like they see that women dance more energetically when they are ready.
What else do you want to milk?
No, but let's say dog trackers, it would be super, but you have a lot of them, and they're all trying to be
That's
kind
next.
of switchier.
That's next.
I'm not sure. The knowledge is like just a cow.
Let's Google it and find out. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, our next guests are from Wearable Tech for pets company Felcana. They have developed something that's even better than Fitbit for your pets. So it's a smart wearable tech digital health device for cats and dogs. So they will share their story. James, when are you launching?
Like competition.
Okay, great. So second half of this year is for you to stay tuned and await more news about Felcana. James is the co-founder, actually founder and CEO, right? Oh, you're co-founders?
Yeah.
Okay. And Kimberly,
Yes, well, shall I introduce myself while you
Yes.
start?
Ali take over.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
So my name is Dr. Kimberly Schiller. I'm only telling you that because the relevance is that I'm actually a vet. So James and I are both vets. Felcana is a vet-led pet technology company. So I was working as a registered vet, and then I moved very much into the public health space. So I was looking more at actually cows and various other things, so and disease outbreaks, looking a bit in the international development space, and then made quite a weird move, probably to an outsider, into management consulting. So I joined Accenture, which is a global consultancy in the health and public sector practice, where I focus on health and digital tech, and specifically digital health innovation. So it's actually in humans that I was spending, spent the last 6 years really focusing on humans, and now I've had the opportunity to, with Felcana, to go back to, I guess, my original passion here, since I was about 6 years old. How are we doing on the tech? But Grace, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. I'm Grace. I'm going to tell you a bit after Kimberly's presentation about the product and how it actually is being used by cats and dogs owners today. I joined the company about 8 months ago now, and I do the social media, PR, and communications at Felcana.
James, do you want to do an intro while we're
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay.
Oh, it worked.
First connection.
Great. So, at Felcana, we believe that all dogs and cats will be connected to the internet by 2025. Right? So that's sticking for a bit. So tonight, what I want to talk to you about are actually, before Grace goes into talking about our product, which we'll also show you, I think, later if you're interested, is I want to talk about two mega trends in the pet that are disrupting the pet industry today. So the first one of those trends is humanization of animals, right? So we do not look at animals in the same way that we used to. As nations develop, we are kind of changing our attitudes. A great poll that was carried out in the US showed that actually 95% of pet owners actually consider their animals to be a member of their family. 76% of pet owners actually consider themselves to be a pet parent to a fur baby, and they are not owners. So it's a question of semantics. In the same similar sort of poll along similar sort of vein, where they looked at, I think it was about 2,205 US adults, so 1,300 of those who owned one pet or more. They found that 46%, so nearly half, had admitted to actually buying I guess birthday presents either occasionally or every year for their pets. So very normal. Other great examples of this are, I don't know if anyone has seen The Secret Life of Pets. No shame in watching children's films. But this is a $75 million film to make, but it grossed over $100 million first box office weekend, because everyone wanted to know what their pets were doing as soon as they stepped out the door. They want to know what makes their dog or cat tick. Brazil, which is one of the sort of largest, fastest growing markets for pet ownership, a couple of years ago in Sao Paulo, they put on the first Pet Fashion Week. So that was they were actually featuring, human and canine models on the catwalk. This is a trend that's really growing. 2/3 of owners allegedly consider their dog's comfort when buying a car. And here we've got some other statistics around. If you have more photos, just I guess check your phone. If you're a dog owner, do you have more photos of your dog than you did before? Another great bit of evidence towards how to show that this humanization is taking place is also to look at the spend and how spend has changed. So there is a clear link when you look at the data between the level of the bond that a person has with their animal, this level of perceived bond, and how much they're willing to pay. So when surveying pet owners around veterinary expenditure, it turns out that actually your spend will change depending on whether you consider your dog or cat property, a pet, or a member of your family. What's also interesting, so clearly a pet parent of a fur baby is going to spend a hell of a lot more than someone who's just going to take a cat to the vet. It's a real trend there. The other thing that's quite interesting, I think, about this particular survey is that you can actually see that depending on what animal you have, the type of animal will also influence your spend. So generally, smaller animals get less. So if you have a bird or a fish, you're not going to be spending quite as much as you are on dogs and cats. There's also a great statistic on here about feeding organic dog food. That's a trend that I don't know how many of you are sort of pet owners in the audience, but that's something that's been going for a few years and was kind of one of the first indicators of this real humanization trend. And actually the pet industry has really benefited from the dog food industry and changing, because people were actually thinking, well, I don't want to feed my dog just dog food. I want to feed my dog something that I would eat. And therefore you can see actually some of these more niche food production companies actually changing what they call the food. So it's no longer just, fish flavored kibbles, fish and chips Friday, or it's like venison stew. So it's a real movement that we're seeing. So let's talk about why that's happening. So it's not just, it doesn't just have to do with our changing cultural attitudes, but there is actually something more behind that as well. So our family structures and generally how our lifestyles have evolved over the last few years are really changing and leaning more towards this humanization. So urbanization is one of the biggest drivers of that. So I mean, it is great statistics about, I mean, this is from the US, that shows, you know, how urban populations are growing. People are tending to move more into cities where they live in much smaller, more confined spaces, but it's also changing our lifestyles. So we work longer hours, spend longer commuting. We want to have, you know, we might live in a big city, we want companionship. We also have aging populations, and aging populations are living longer. People are more eager to have, you know, a small, maybe easier to care for companion to have in a smaller flat. We also have, you know, a higher level of young, I suppose, urban professionals who are staying single for longer. So one of the, you know, some of the things that we're seeing in the trends are that actually, you know, people are delaying, there's a general trend towards delaying marriage, for instance, you know, the last generation. People also tend to have fewer children. So that's another, we find that actually people are delaying marriage, keen to have companionship, spending more of their disposable income on their pets, also having fewer children, perhaps, you know, instead of having 3 children, might have two children and then have an animal. Well, as you see, animals featuring quite largely in that. You also see that, you know, we have more dual income families. So when you have dual income households, you have more disposable income, which really feeds in nicely to the humanization trend. Spend more on putting your dog in a pram and dressing it in tutu. Second mega trend that I wanted to talk about tonight, which is not going to come as a surprise to anyone here, is just the increase in power and affordability of technology that we can access today. So, you know, clearly technology has come a long way. You know, the computer chips that we had 40 years ago were nowhere near as powerful as they do today. I think there it's 2.6 million times more powerful than it was 40 years ago. I mean, also our phones, you know, if you take a look at the iPhone 7, it's, you know, 10,000 times faster. It's much smaller, it's much cheaper, it's much, you know, more attractive generally than those you argue about than we used to have. And there's also, the second thing is, you know, it's not just about power, but it's about connectivity. So we are really seeing that, you know, over the last few years, people are actually connecting and leveraging the internet. It's much more accessible to people, and through that connectivity, there's more data sharing. People are generally living more connected lives. They expect to get answers, you know, at the sort of tip of the button, you know, tip of the finger when they press a button. They also want to just have, you know, answers quickly. The cost also generally, the sort of other side of, you know, this technology becoming more affordable, is that actually it's a lot easier to start a tech startup. I'm sure, you know, maybe perhaps lots of people in the audience appreciate. It's making it a lot easier to actually take ideas and, you know, create something that's going to be consumer driven and tech enabled and put it for the new market. So what we're getting is that, like, these two mega trends of this humanization of pets. So, you know, specifically, you know, in our case, we're looking at dogs and cats. That's coming together with the technology, which is more affordable, cheaper, and you find that that's actually just changing what we're seeing in the pet industry. So, firstly, you have, you know, an increased demand from pushier pet parents, you know, who are expected to have better products for their pets. We now see that there's a trend towards, if you can get it for a human, you should obviously be able to get it for a pet as well. You know, that seems to go for ice cream, you know, webcams, clothing, all sorts. It also means that the increase of the tech trend is also enabling all of this, because actually what it means is that tech businesses can actually meet that demand, meet those demands of the pet parents to actually easily bring to market these ideas that they might have. So I think over the next few years, what we're really going to see is we're going to see a slew of, you know, consumer-driven, tech-enabled pet products and services that are really, you know, tailored to the needs of the modern pet owner. So the pet industry, you know, having, I suppose, worked alongside it, you know, in the veterinary industry, which is sort of ancillary, can see that it's actually quite traditional. You know, they haven't been for a long time. So they had a bit of disruption with, you know, some kind of niche foods and kind of, homemade diets that came in, but that wasn't really, pushing the bucket out too far. It wasn't too crazy. But now they're actually seeing more and more people are looking at the pet market and looking at ways to actually bring tech into it and disable it, or enable it rather. Sorry. So I think what they really need to do is, in order to actually keep in time with the predictable course of what's going to happen. First, the pet industry has to be ready to look at increased specialization in products. They need to look at products that are actually tailored to pet parents' motivations. What's going on in other sectors? So a great indicator for coming up pet trends is actually the children and baby sector, babies specifically. So you can actually see, for instance, there's a lot of baby tech, which is actually quite new on the market. Health care, so in human healthcare and the sort of general sort of wellness area, and also lifestyle. All of these trends are actually coming to be mirrored in pets. We also need to actually look at generally how we bring those things to market. Yeah. So, I'm going to end with just, I suppose, a bit of endorsement from, I don't know if anyone knows this guy. Anyone watch Mad Money? No, it's quite US focused unless you watch CNBC. So Jim Cramer is basically, he's managed to come up with it. He has a TV show which advises people on investments. And he's also quite, he's kind of gone a bit viral. So he's actually, a lot of people he has a lot of credibility. He used to be on Wall Street. But he's now actually accurately predicted a number of investment trends that we can find people who actually say that they might have to listen to this. So he said that humanization of pets is just one of the greatest investing themes in the market. And they might be a bit more ahead of us in the US, where you see that actually there's been huge, there's huge movement, especially in the veterinary space. There's a lot of, veterinary practices being pulled up and turned into chains. There are a lot of there are great pet sitting services, pet sharing services that have come out of this. And I think, starting to see a lot of that emerge over in Europe and Asia as well. So I think this is great, if you know any investors, this is what you should dip into. So I think that leads probably quite nicely into handing over to Grace to talk a little bit more about our launch product. So
as Kimberly just mentioned, health is quite a big trend for everyone here. I'm sure some of you have Fitbits or use Apple Health on your watch. And fitness has become something that we're all obsessed with. And that translates into our dogs too. People want to know what's going on with their pet, and especially in cities like London, where most of us are working all day. We don't know what's going on when we're not at home. So Felcana is actually the first veterinary-led tech startup for pets. And this is a really important point because we know what your dog needs to be watching out for. We know what diseases could affect them. We know what might be happening with your cat. But we also know what, as an owner, you want to know. When you come into the vet's clinics, you're asking us specific questions. Sometimes there's nothing wrong with your pet. You're just a bit worried because they are your baby. So we decided, well, James and Kimberly decided, there's stuff we can do about this. And using technology, it is more affordable now. We can bring that to your pets. So this is the Felcana system. And this is our Helix device. This fits onto your cat or dog's collar. It's pretty small, as you can see. It looks pretty nice. And it also only weighs 9 grams, so it's not going to obstruct your pet. Now, there are other competitors on the market that do devices that measure your pet's activity, but it's not very granular, the data they can give you. They can just give you the high-level stuff. And what we're working to do is to really unravel all that data that's collected and explain that to you in ways that you'll understand it as a pet owner, that the vet can get really insightful data from it. We worked with a design agency, Precipice. There's a few of them in the audience today, actually. And what was really great about working with Precipice was that we knew what we needed to tell people as a vet and what information they needed. But we also know how pet owners think. And pets are playful, pets are fun. We needed to find that marriage between the fun of pets and actually the medical and clinical stuff that was going to be important, and how we conveyed that to the owner. So we realized that the device had to look sophisticated in the first place. If it looks like a bone, people are going to think it's a toy. That was the main thing. We needed to be able to give diagnostic data to vets, so we're working on our app at the moment. That translates everything that's important to you as a pet owner in a way that you can understand. How many times your pet went to the toilet, or how much time your dog was running around under their dog walker in the daytime. But one of the important things to realise was that we can take all this data that we're collecting from our devices and use that to expand the pet industry and the way that we look at health with our pets. So this data is great for insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies for pets, and also other pet industry stakeholders such as Mars Pet Care and Purina. We're taking the data, so you understand exactly what's going on with your pet, and we use that data, we can find out what breeds are more susceptible to different diseases and conditions. And that actually is going to be really helpful for pet owners, because the insurance companies know, actually, your pet's not high risk for us, we're going to reduce your premium. So also, we had access to study with a lot of academics, so this is a really scientific program that we've gone through. We've worked with the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons, obviously the Royal Veterinary College in London, and also Cambridge University. And it looks good as well. Pet owners want their pets to look nice. We do see them as our companions and our babies and our children. And I mean, I've got 2 pets at home. I don't want some huge big device on their neck. It's really small. Any dog can wear it. Your Chihuahua can wear it. Your Great Dane can wear it. We've got beacons as well. And these are our unique selling point as Felcana. So we're not just gathering activity data. Vets need to know important things such as how much your dog's eating or drunk each day. So by placing micro-location beacons, which I've got one here, again it's really small, around your home on the important objects such as your pet litter tray or their dog food bowl, when your dog comes into, or your cat comes into range of the beacon, these actually interact with each other, and that gets registered on the app. We know when they visited this item, the dog bed or bowl, how long they spent there, and from that information we can find out what's normal for your pet. We can find out what their baseline is, and when things start to change, we let you know, and then you can tell your vet exactly what's wrong and give them all that data as well. And it's just a quick diagram so you can see how everything interacts. So we've got the pet wearing a collar, we've got the Bluetooth connection between the Helix device and bowl, cat flap and litter tray, or wherever you want to place this beacon. That information is stored up in the cloud server, so that data, that's where our artificial intelligence happens, so we can understand exactly what's happening and make inferences based on your dog or cat as an individual. It's not based on breed-specific information that we've taken. We're actually basing this on real data that we're collecting. And then you've got your smartphone, which you can look wherever you are in the world. You could be in holiday in California and your dog's at the kennel. You can open up your smartphone and know exactly what's been happening. When you're next to your dog, you can also get that real-time data, so you know what's happening all the time and can be connected with your pet wherever you are. Thank you.
Can we have a look at it?
Yeah, sure.
So small.
How much is it? Like, just that?
So it actually comes with a set, so you get 2 of these beacons. This is the set inside here. The home hub, which is where we charge the Helix device, and also it's sort of the data nest,
Range extender.
yeah, range extender as well.
But if you were to replace that bit, like, how much would that be?
The whole kit retails for £99.
But it's like dog collars and cat collars come all the time. So, like, if I've got through some cat collars, it's great. Because obviously, there needs to be, if you cat gets guts somewhere, the cat collar needs to snap off.
Actually, it's interesting that because that's obviously so that's actually a bit of an urban myth.
Well, my cat got caught the other day, and it got caught up in its collar, and it drew blood from its mouth. So yeah,
It's interesting they've done, because that's clearly
So
something that.
just on that. So
Yeah.
academic reasons for quite a lot of this, and all of the reasons that gets caught is college because of.
right. But apart from the fact where it actually gets caught on
Yeah, we do see. I mean,
but it needs to be replaceable anyway.
Yeah, it
so
needs
like
to be
how much is just like the little bit that is basically effectively going out inside, going into rivers, going into oceans.
So it does need to be flexible. So very flexible. Cats, the advice on our side is not to put on a safe that's safe.
Sorry, I don't know how much is.
Yes, you can buy additional beacons and helices as well, because you might have a multi-pet household. I think we haven't really landed quite on the pricing, have we? For the individual helices. Oh yeah. So, but it's something that we know that people want.
So I have to go around the collar because my dog doesn't have a collar, she just has a harness.
It does for now have to go around the collar because you get very different readings if you're wearing a harness and you put it on your back. You're not going to quite get the same kind of technical data programming.
So what sensors what data do you actually do?
The data that we collect. Yeah. So we have an accelerometer in the Helix itself. We have Bluetooth. The beacons are Bluetooth, and we use low technology as well. In terms of what we're able to detect is that we can know exactly what kind of movement they're doing. So we know if they're sort of walking, sitting, jumping, running, lying down. We also get the times of all that, so we can pick up the latency. So we'll know how long it takes, for instance, for your dog to go from lying down to standing up in the morning, which is actually a great indicator, if they're getting a bit stiff or if they become more arthritic in old age. We also have in the Helix itself got an ambient temperature sensor. So it actually will tell you if your dog or cat is in a very hot, cold environment. So really, really relevant for dogs in hot cars. It sends you an alert with that.
I think that where the beacons come in is really important is they help us to measure the biometric data, how much your dog or cat is eating and drinking. And I don't know if any of you might not know this, but a cat that has diabetes, the first symptom of their diabetes is usually they start to drink more water. And that's difficult for us to track anyway, because we just don't naturally think to. If you've got more than one cat or dog, you tend to have just one water bowl. So actually by using the Helix device and the interactions with the beacons, you can see how much more they're starting to drink and get all that data, and it's time stamped as well, so your vet knows exactly when these trends started to happen.
Essentially, we can get the Helix combined, it's the combination of the Helix and the beacons that give you that granularity. Because the Helix will be able to tell us, if they're drinking or eating through the motion that's detecting. And if you use the Helixes, you can place them anywhere in your house and you can actually change the radius. So if you want to have a specific object, you can make it quite narrow down to 10 centimeters. So you can narrow that out to 10 meters if you don't want to go in the next garden, you don't want them to go upstairs. So that, when they go to the water bowl, you'll be able to detect if they're actually drinking or if they're just standing by their water dish. And basically what we're trying to do is we're going to make a baseline for you of what's normal for your dog or cat. So if anything that is out of whack, we'll tell you, but we're not sort of imposing, this is normal for a normal dog or cat. We'll just track, over a period of weeks, we'll be able to track, what their normal routines are, what their normal eating, drinking, and toileting and sleeping behaviours are. And therefore, if anything changes, then that's significant enough to maybe, call your vet and say, okay, look, I've noticed this trend.
Or call Kimberly.
Yes. It's also bite proof if you want to, but please don't because it's actually quite valuable. But, yeah.
So
So the beacon itself.
yeah, or something like one.
Well, the beacons are stuck onto whatever object you have with adhesive. So you wouldn't be, unless they're actually destroying, the bowl itself, it would be very difficult for them to get off it. Sort of industrial grade adhesive. They all pass through the other end. The best thing I've actually ever seen is corn on the cob shoot out the other end. So there's always hope.
How does it affect being used or affect using data?
So one of the things that's great to touch upon a unique selling point is that we're not, so for consumer product, we're also very much focused on vets. And you can see that's very much gone into the design, as you said. The data that's coming out of it, what was key for us is that it's actually clinically useful, which is why the one we were looking at, having that, that motion, that regular activity data, but also knowing, how often they are doing what's normal for them. Drinking and eating and toileting and sleeping are probably, four symptoms that you probably ask about in a clinical history when you bring your dog or cat into vet. a good clinician should probably say, how's it been going with Fluffy or Fido or whatever, and you just, and are they drinking normally? Are they behaving any differently? Are they going to the toilet anymore? Usually more than regular. And we're not clinically diagnosing a specific problem with this, but what we're doing is we're actually picking up these subtle changes before an owner would be able to pick it up themselves. I mean, the difficulty of being there, of course, is that you can't ask the pet how they're feeling. That might actually be a blessing sometimes. I wonder about it when you think about it. But also as a pet owner, you're not with your animal 24 hours a day. And also the account that you give the vet is often slightly coloured by, you're a bit maybe biased, or it's not an objective account. But so for example, some conditions that this is very useful for are anything, so post-operatively, for instance, if you go and you have a golden retriever and you have hip replacement or hip dysplasia, they have to be on strict cage rest afterwards, and this is one of the things that we're working on some of the universities with. But it's really hard to actually control a really boisterous animal, and as an owner, and it's really hard, you have to be quite strict about it. One of the great things is if you had actually one of these activity collars on, you would be able to see if while you're out and about, whether they are actually jumping up around or if they're being still like they're supposed to. Arthritis is something that's very difficult to detect because essentially it's just, like in humans, you just slow down. So you'll find that in older dogs and cats, they'll just get a bit slower. And you do treat arthritis, for older pets, especially in dogs. You'll actually put them on a painkiller that you give them, kind of low dose painkiller that they live with, for the rest of their lives. And sometimes if it's, the best thing is that actually if you treat early, it's less likely to get worse, and you're more likely to be able to keep them at that lowest state of pain for longer. So this is about picking up those subtle signs that you can't really detect with the human eye. Especially in cats, where they're particularly stoic animals, it's really difficult to see actually if your cat is potentially drinking twice as much as it normally does. But hyperthyroidism and kidney disease are two of the main diseases that older cats might end up getting, or actually any cat probably at some point might fall proud to. And so if you can actually pick up these subtle trends initially, then that's quite valuable.
Still looking. I feel like I can help.
What have you got?
I have about 5 dogs that I work with. One is my own, but I've not permission.
Well, I think we're doing
Yeah, we
Yeah,
beta testing actually.
You're based in London, we'd love to get you involved.
Yeah, that's what I'm
So, on the price point, then, obviously, cheap plastic keyboard one, that's about £25.
Mhm.
So basically, what you're saying is the higher indexing of sound playing, and I guess a smaller design. That system is £99.
So the system that's £25, they don't actually give you very much in terms of the insight of the data. They're just able to tell you 20 minutes of play and that's it. Whereas we're taking that information, we're finding the baseline, we're doing a lot more with the data as well. We've got the beacons as well, we've got a lot more to our system than just activity monitoring that has actually been proven in a lot of articles by both academics and reviewers to be not actually predicting or telling you what's actually going on with your pet. They can be looking at the app that says if your pet's running around and actually they're fine.
It's probably granularity of the data. So another player now in the UK space that you might see is Cat. Great guys who kind of been on Dragon's Den. And they have a device and they're going for a different, they're going for a slightly different market. So because we know them, we talk to them, they're going for a low cost, high volume, but it is more of a fun interactive toy. The other thing though that they don't have, for instance, is they don't have real-time data pushed through. Which means you have to actually physically take the device and sync it to your phone and just get data back. So they have a great battery life. But part of the reason they have great battery life is because you don't have that automatic heat. When you look at the key players in the US market who are coming out, their price point is more when they're doing, when they're producing this kind of granularity of data, their price point is actually higher. Often they're also incorporating some other functions such as location searches, which actually have subscription fees. And there are even some that don't have GPS that have subscription fees as well. Where it's going. Are you planning on subscription?
One more.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm curious about the presentation as well. Like, I think one of the things just generally with wearables it's the constraints we have by the capital sensitive devices and not really able information. You guys have come up with a system for optimizing the most effective. I'm just curious from a measurement perspective whether you'd be able to get more information, more relevant data from saliva and sweat of animals. Because it's an interesting direction now. We're looking to this microfluidics analysis of not just sensitive.
Yeah, I mean, so definitely not so much sweat, not as much, but like saliva useful. I mean, there's also, for instance, there's a company in the US called Petnostics, which is a startup. They've also done equipment for Dragon's Den over there, and he's come up with this basically at-home urinary testing kit, which goes to an app. So if you have a cat, for instance, who gets frequent UTIs, you can actually test it and feed the data into your phone, which you can then hopefully take your vet and share. So, I mean, there are lots of other ways that you can gather data from pets. I mean, there's also IDEX who do chips, microchips. They're coming up with looking at how they can get temperature from microchips, but it's actually really difficult. I mean, the big problem is it's actually really hard to get clinically accurate data from some of this technology at the moment, and that's one of the reasons why sometimes we get asked why don't you have GPS location tracking? So that's something we're working on for our next next model. This is the Helix iteration, but at the moment the technology just isn't there and to be user friendly because it saps the battery life, so it's just not very useful. From that point, because you're charging it constantly. It's also huge, and one thing that is that actually, size matters, and overall design matters, because you need to also be able to wear the animal needs to be able to wear it comfortably.
Right, we're just going to have to move on to the next one, but thank you so much. That was really. You must get a lot of questions because you're there as well.
Try not to answer the simple ones.
Okay, so finally we've got Katie speaking about the side project VR of TDC, yeah, and VR for Cat. So that would be good.
Well, it has. Have you got any questions? Okay. I don't think that is the actual resolution. It's changed the resolution of the monitor. It's fine. We're waiting. Yeah, so I'm Katie, Creative Director at Triangle Pixels. We are a VR game studio down in Cornwall. And I come to be here for a conference, so I've got a long hello. We otherwise known for a game that we released called Unseen Diplomacy. But the idea of the game is that you are a spy, and we use the HC5, so you actually are walking around this amazing big environment, performing events, rolling unique lasers, and generally just kicking ass. So actually it's more like physical assault force rather than it. And some of the other games that we're working on as well, or have worked on and sort of played around with. So Smash It is a PVR title that we were making quite a while ago, and sort of changed that since then, but made a jam game called Construction where we linked a PVR to a phone or a tablet, so you can actually play with someone in virtual reality rather than necessarily just watching someone turn around in circles, which is what you normally do. And that actually won Oculus VR Game Jam quite a while ago, and just sort of play around. So some examples, like a little demo that we did, which was trying to make you feel like you're a toddler again by shrinking you down and making the environment around you really big. Didn't actually work because it turns out when you're an adult, you feel like an adult because of your body proportions rather than all the objects around you. So let me show you the problem, as it were. So, don't know how aware of the HTC5 you are, but we have this frequency which takes up a 4 meter by 3 meter area. And as I mentioned in the game, you're actually physically walking around this big space. As you go between rooms, the environment's loading out behind you secretly, which nobody else has really done. And basically, it means that you can walk around effectively in circles, but you never know you are, and you're actually exploring a really big space. And you'll see in a bit, it's a really physically active game. There's so many VR games out there that are just sort of like this. Like, people are so absorbed in this game, shooting things, dodging things. Like, it's so intense. Like, if you haven't done VR, you need to do VR. I'm not going to preach about it now. There's enough people out there that will do that. So, no, I want to see what happens when it goes through the form. You want to see my husband's ass? Basically. So what I say to people, like, when we've shown this all over the place. And so yeah, we get like the general public to do this. And I get to see so much arse crack. And because they're blindfolded, I'm basically saying, yeah, I'm getting to crawl around the floor blindfolded in front of me. It's a bit of a gimmick, right? So let's fast forward a little bit. So this is like a gameplay video that we uploaded where we're just trying to show off the general concepts of what you're doing within the game. And in this end bit, you have to run between the keyboards, trying to hack at them, like proper film style hacking, and trying to save the world or save the internet from being deleted. Literally running around outside. So, in the middle of filming, it's happening away, I'm obviously just watching. And because of where our play space is, the nice warm window is that side. And look who's come back. That's our cat getting kicked. And it's like, I didn't notice, I've saved the internet, saved the other cats, but some of my cat who gets kicked. Anyway. Fine. So, HTC5, HTC, basically took the end of one of these controllers and just made it an independent device that you could buy. And they really know like the DIY hacking framework because they put a few pins at the back of it so you can do whatever you want with it. And it's really light, it's really cheap, and it basically just allows you to track anything. So there's people out there at the moment that have been putting them on the back of actual like proper real feeling guns. So you can get like a real feeling gun in the game, or the bottom of a baseball bat, so you can like play proper baseball in VR. There's all like nicer applications by actually things like they've got a fireman training program where they put it on the front of a real hose, so you've got the feel and the weight of the hose, as well as being dressed up as an actual fireman as well. So it's like real proper was physical feeling framing. All of these were assuming that you're going to be using it as a controller, essentially, for your game or your app. But we saw it as actually, we could use it almost like as a proactive aid to stop you from, like, or being able to, like, see your pet or your kid or whatever you want from any game you want. It's like, we want this as a warning. If this thing comes into your area, keep an eye out and watch out. So all I did, get one of these, took a cat jacket, sewed it to the back. That was my bit. That was the easy bit. Because then we took what they called the compositor, which is once you've got your game and you've rendered your game out, it then gets shoved through OpenVR to what they call the compositor. And that's where Windows and Steam and everything communicates and goes, what we're going to actually send to these monitors, which is the VR kit. So on this compositor, we managed to get access to it and basically just hack into it to inject our own 3D models or whatever we wanted. So we've got this app that you can just sit in between effectively your game or experience or whatever you're doing and the compositor and your actual headset. So we can attach any 3D model to this tracker. And I think my husband said it's probably the first time he's ever been in sort of IK. If you ever heard of what IK is? I've done one dev, So it also detects things like, you can tell by heuristics if the cat is standing up or sitting backwards or sitting down or lying down and things. So we can actually just change the animation, of course, like in-game of a cat model to match what the actual cat is doing. So that's a very shitty clickbait YouTube video type thing, because as soon as I mentioned online the fact that we were just playing around and doing this, literally the internet viral on it. Like, it was crazy. We had all the press contacting us. I went through so many interviews and things. Cat came, like, Cat is famous, honestly. You search his image and he's all over the place. And we had a Discovery Channel come around to our house, like, in the middle of Depth Cornwall. Bloody hell. So, video editing. Really? Now there is certain restrictions with that search. So, because we are going in via the compositor rather than like going into people's game code and things, it means that this game here, you can see like you can't see them in the reflection, and that's because that game code has no idea this thing exists. It's things like the cat itself. It's not actually what they can depth tested against anything that's in the background. So even though it's 3D and you can sort of put it on top of 3D objects, if there's an object in the game that's rendering really close to your eyes and the cat is far away, like the cat looks like it's far away, still, like you can still see the cat in front of everything. That makes sense? It's really hard to explain to you, I can say. But it does mean that we don't have to go to developers all over the world going, please can you put this bit of code in your game that you might have already stopped updating and stuff. That's just really not practical. So what I'm trying to do with this is like trying to just keep it going and just like updating bits and bobs and stuff until actually going to release it. But our main aim really was to actually get HTC to look at what we could do with that compositor. And even just today, people have started to realize this is actually like a useful way of being able to get in between like your normal VR app and the game, and people's eyes or whatever, because people are now realizing, hey, now we can build little apps within this area. And in fact, so someone has released an app which allows wheelchair users to play any sort of VR game. They've got this same sort of thing where now they're sitting in this compositor, and if you're in a wheelchair, it changes all the controls a bit, so you drag the world to you rather than you having to bend down to reach stuff or reach up into the sky or whatever, which you might not be able to do. So I'm hoping we continue to push HC in the direction where it's like building this ecosystem and allowing us more things, because you wouldn't believe the amount of hacks we have to do to get this to work, honestly. So, I mean, I've got a really short presentation because I thought it's going to be much more interesting. If you want to actually just talk about it, if you want to talk about it is. So, has anyone got any questions about it or any of that? Yep.
So, not getting started, you created something that allows people, not safe feature, you can track your pet or your baby if you're distracted by it.
Yeah. So you can actually see them within your world, so you can either take them apart somehow, because it's not you're not going to stick HMD on your cat, are you? So it's like just seeing them and get to kill them and interact with them, or yeah, as a warning mainly. And it's not exactly, you could do it as a thing where it's like you can attach it to your keyboard and see your keyboard in virtual reality, which is really annoying when you're trying to like do something and then look it up and down all the time. You just see your keyboard instead. Or my drink, attach it to my beer, see my beer in virtual reality. But it's interesting because I guess we brought out all this new tech and we haven't really thought about like the normal user cases. Like it's sitting in someone's house, stuff is going on around them. Like we've just assumed that everyone's got this magical VR space and nothing happens in it. Some people have, but most people can't afford that sort of thing. So there's been things like the chaperone system, which is where you mark up your play space, and so like if you can, like if you've got like a sofa in the way, you can draw around the sofa and things like that. They've also got the ability to switch on the camera at the front, so you've got this weird sort of Tron world where you see everything in front of you. That cuts out the game. So just to have something like attached to your pet or cat or whatever will really help, I think.
How much that VR itself is worth?
So these basically anyone can buy this, but they're basically aimed at developers at the moment. What they're waiting for is like hardware manufacturers to take that idea and concept and actually make things they could release, as it were. So that is like $100 for a developer to buy, which is pretty cheap for a prototype kit. Don't know how much it costs the prototype things physically nowadays, but I'm like $100 on that. So, fun. Yeah.
Is your intention for the cat to be wearing this all the time?
No.
So is it like, so in the future scenario, like I decide I want to play VR, I have to go and catch my cat, and then if it runs away while I'm still playing VR and it gets caught in a tree, that's quite a big thing.
Yeah, basically our cat, the only way he goes outside is by us letting him out. Like this, it's mainly a way, a concept of saying we need to build software for this hardware to warn people about things in virtual reality. So it's like, it's ultimately like the hardware design of things isn't necessarily the interesting bit here. It's more that concept of just, we need to look out for pets, we need to look out for things moving.
I'd say like, we're designers, we're product designers, so it's like, hardware is a massive part of it, and it's a lot to do with why we buy it and the practicality of using it.
So as a hardware person then, if you go to like online to Valve, you can actually buy the chips that are actually on here, that are hidden on here. And those chips, they've got a course now where you only need 3 of those chips and then like one at a different angle to track virtual reality. It's like a really scalable ecosystem. So you could do something like you can put them into your own type of bracelet, which you can put onto a kid and you can see your kid walking around. Or, but I mean, I'm not a hardware person, so.
It's like, it's obviously just a prototype, but in terms of it, like, I can see the idea of just like moving it forward to something practical and actually like.
Yeah, but so for us, this is like very much a side project and like a software project. It's like, here's some free software, go ahead, go play with it. Like, we make games and gamers need this sort of thing. Like,
A lot of gamers have cats.
a lot of gamers have cats. Yeah. Dogs, whatever. Like, put it onto your turtle, very slowly crawling quite over. The fun bit as well is the fact we can change it for any model. So like we turned a cat into a little lion or like a little T-Rex. That's what we can do. Yeah.
Was it like being a tech entrepreneur all that?
Well, so we started in London, and then we realised we wanted to go full time at our own company. Because we both used to work at Ferris at once. I used to work at Frontier and sewing and all that. We were like, well, we're not going to be earning any money for a long time. Drop everything, go somewhere really cheap. In Cornwall, actually, there's a lovely scene now of it's lots and lots of tech, and that's because essentially that's where all the undersea cables come in. So, like literally on our beach, I could just tap down and get some ridiculous broadband. But also because of all the European funding, there's a lot of support as well for those tech startups. So for now, it's really amazing. They've also obviously realised there's not really that much of a future in manufacturing. It's not really been a manufacturing part anyway. Like all the farms being bought up by big mega farms and stuff. So kids need to do something. And like we'd go and show at the local school and go, look kids, you can at home start making your own games.
Are they interesting?
Oh yeah. Oh, if you go to a careers fair with the game that I showed earlier versus the local bank, very interesting, yeah, all of the kids. Because they are actually, there's a surprising amount of kids that are actually already making games in their own time and also being taught how to do it at school. They're actually getting kids into Game Maker and starting to do stuff because it involves everything. It involves story, creative writing. It involves art, creative art, music. It involves animation. It involves programming, maths, and design, like user interfacing. It's everything all combined into one medium. So that's why you get kids to do games. And also they enjoy it. They enjoy the end result. It's good fun. That's also like watch. Yeah, there was a 10-year-old that sold the game that he made and he had an absolute kills on it.
Well, there you go, baby. I'll start that.
I'm just wondering, because you were saying that the game is about reflection, that the hack was integrated into the code of the game.
Yeah.
Have any developers used it to actually integrate the animal or whatever you're tracking?
Yeah, so
into the game?
quite a while ago, there was a developer that just shoved one of the controllers into his dog's collar, and obviously spent a lot of time animating. But he turned his dog into one of the worm creatures from his game, but then like animated it so when the dog was moving, like the tail was wagging on this creature. It's a bit creepy, but like it obviously wasn't very scalable, and not many people have got extra controllers lying around or things like that. So, but no, it's like, I guess because you feel like you're really inhabiting somewhere, you also want to see your fellow there, you know, your best friend. Any other questions? No? Oh, thank you. All right.